What's up, everyone? Welcome to Play Hard and Love Big Radio. This is the official podcast of Spotted Dog Yoga and Sup Shop based out of Folsom, California. Check us out at spotteddogyoga.com. We are dedicated to bringing you the stories and the people that will help you be inspired to live your life to the fullest potential. I'm here today with my amazing wife, Katie Clark. My name is Nick Clark. Katie, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about how being uncomfortable is actually something to be grateful for and look for versus something to avoid or hide from.
All right. Well, I can tell right now that my armpits are ready for this conversation.
Are
So
you feeling uncomfortable?
I started to sweat a little bit when you said that. Good thing I'm wearing my natural deodorant that you purchased us.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So, what do you think about it?
Well, I think that anytime you're uncomfortable, that's a good thing. Like when I was playing soccer, I played soccer my whole life up until like 4 years out of college. I remember that if you ever had butterflies, it was a good thing. It meant that you're ready for the game. You're prepared and excited, and that's just your body's way of naturally letting you know that you're ready. And outside of athletics and whatnot, I think that if you are uncomfortable or you feel uncomfortable, that's a good sign. That's your body telling you that you're ready for a shift. You're ready to do something different, and that there's opportunity and possibility in that. So I think that it's a good sign if you're uncomfortable. What do you think about it?
Well, I was just going to ask you, why do you think it is that people avoid discomfort generally? I think it's pretty common.
Well, because it's much easier for people just to do what's comfortable for them, what's easy for them, that what they've done before. It's like a safe place for them. So I know there's plenty of places in my life where I do that, and um, I wouldn't say that I'm constantly looking for places to go or things to do that make me uncomfortable, but I do know that if I'm not ever finding those places or being around those people or doing those things that make me uncomfortable, that I'm in a place of stagnation. It just feels kind of like a dead space for me. But I do believe that, there's something about feeling comfortable, like eating comfort foods or wearing the same comfy clothes that you love wearing to bed every night. Not that those are bad things, but like those are examples of things that are comforts that I like and people like feeling comfortable. But if something
Right.
makes them uncomfortable, then they shy away from it naturally in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad to be comfortable either, but it's the point with which you become so comfortable or disconnected from even noticing opportunities or things that you could do that are different that might make you uncomfortable, but you're just not willing to go there. That's when it's a problem. And looking for things that create discomfort are things to be um not necessarily like sought out, but like when they happen, noticing them and being an inquiry as to why that is. I think people tend to use numbing things to avoid discomfort sometimes, like, oh gosh, I had like a rough day, I need a drink, or things like that, which isn't bad either. Like, I definitely like to have a couple beers myself, but when you're using numbing agents as a method to avoid feeling the discomfort, that can be definitely not a good thing. I think that being uncomfortable is something that creates growth. And I think the problem that has happened in today's society with the fast paced way that we live, where we have like so much information coming at us all the time, we have like social media is a distraction for people. You like feel uncomfortable, you don't want to like think about or feel the things that are going on in your life that are making you uncomfortable, so you just scroll through social media mindlessly, or you put Netflix on and binge watch a show. a show, again, which aren't necessarily bad things, but if you're using them as a tool to avoid feeling, then it can be detrimental. But things that are uncomfortable, I think don't come up or are pushed away much more easily because of the fast paced way that we live. And an example that I was thinking about before we started is, when we first opened, we didn't play any music in any of our classes. And we do play music now. But I think we play less music overall than some yoga classes, some yoga studios. And so that there's time, the reason is so that there's time for people to listen to their breath and get connected to their body. And I remember when we didn't play any music at all, people complaining about it to us all the time. And the main reason that people said that they wanted music was to distract themselves
Right.
from what they were doing. And it's like, well, that's so backwards because yoga is meant for you to not be distracted. It's meant for you to come out of your thinking into your body, be fully present. And so if your music in your yoga class is your way of escaping discomfort, then you're really not getting the true purpose and meaning of the yoga practice.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great example. That made me think of when I go mountain biking. I always take my earbuds, and there's times when I listen to music and it motivates me and it excites me. But what I believe is a result of learning to do yoga in a silent space and just being with my breath and my body and whatnot is that I just can't do it the whole time. I'll go for an hour long ride, and after a while, I've got to turn the music off. I become disassociated with my surroundings. I am like exhausted from the noise. Really, it's too much. And so after a while of it being motivating, I turn it off, and it's so refreshing. Like out here, I can hear the coyotes. I feel like I can see better because I'm aware of all the different things, all the different aspects of the landscape that I'm riding in. I'm just way more aware when I don't have music. That being said, I think that there's a balance to it, which is why we really have shifted over time to play some music here intentionally and no music here intentionally, and to be intentional with it, because you have to have some sort of balance. And I love music, you know. Um, but speaking of music, what this conversation reminds me of is a Pink Floyd song that's on the Dark Side of the Moon album. It's called Comfortably Numb. Do you know that song?
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah.
aware of that song. But that is kind of what society has become, and a lot of people have become that way if they've become comfortably numb. They just, whether they're using something to make them numb to keep them from really staying present and focused and getting present and focused, or maybe they're not using something like a substance, but they're actually, or like music, but they're actually just in general comfortably numb. They just go throughout their day doing the same thing that they've done every other day. They don't think about different ways in which they could do things. They don't try to improve themselves. They just allow themselves to be as they are. And sometimes those things that they hold on to are great, and sometimes those things that they hold on aren't so great, but they're just okay being like status quo in a lot of ways. And they just kind of run around like they're on a hamster wheel. And I think that's an unfortunate place to be as a human being and on this planet, when there's so many amazing opportunities and possibilities to grow and to expand and to improve and to shift, not just for ourselves, but for our future generations, like that. So I guess my question for you, Katie, and what I think would be valuable for the listeners on the show is, how do you know when you are being like comfortably numb, or how do you know when you're numbing out and you're not stepping towards what's uncomfortable, and how can you learn to go towards what's uncomfortable?
Well, I think, just speaking from my personal experience, it's like I don't ever do something to, like, if I use the example of like having a couple beers. Okay, I don't do that in reaction. So it's not because I'm uncomfortable or I've had a bad day or I don't want to deal with what's in front of me that I have a couple beers. I have a couple beers like generally like just if it's like hot outside or I'm having a meal that beer tastes good with or we're having friends over or something like that. It's not in reaction to discomfort that I do something to
Hmm.
avoid it. So
Hmm.
I think it's looking for like noticing when you're uncomfortable and then being having the awareness to notice and be an inquiry around what your reaction to being uncomfortable is like what and it's probably like there's probably a pattern or something that you do that's similar to deal with that. And then in terms of how do you know if you're just comfortably numb and like you're not feeling uncomfortable at all because you're just like so like on autopilot like day to day, I think it's just taking a look at your life. Like, are you like having experiences or are you just kind of like on, like you said, the hamster wheel and going around and around? Like, are you feeling joy in your life? Are you feeling gratitude? Are you feeling connection? Because I don't think that if you're numbed out, you can feel any of those things. So it's kind of it goes back to like being willing to look at yourself and having the awareness to look at your patterns, your day, and see where it is that you can create something new, create a shift, like find things to do that maybe are uncomfortable. Like just yoga class is uncomfortable, right? Like I just that's like an easy example. So if you're a person who's like not really exercising, like and not just yoga, but like any exercise is kind of uncomfortable, but it's good for you. It's like a good kind of uncomfortable. And when you're doing something physical, that's a really easy way to notice if what's going on with you, right? So like in yoga, especially because we put emphasis on being connected to breath, you can notice in your yoga practice if your breath is lost or you get distracted, you notice it because you stop doing that intentional breath, and then you can identify the thoughts that you're having and you can notice that and make a shift. So yeah, I think physical activity is a really easy way to get out of being so comfortable and get into your body and notice what is going on.
Right. Physical activity, and also what we're doing here in a sense too, inquiry. We talk about, like at Spotted Dog Yoga, we work from the three practices and techniques of Baptiste Yoga. We work from the asana, which is the physical practice, meditation, and also inquiry. And inquiry is an access to discovery and new possibility. And so I love what you're saying. You've got to be able to get into your body in order to like get present and to start noticing where it is that you're comfortable and where you're not doing things that could help you expand and whatnot. And also, it requires you taking a deeper looking and doing some inquiry around why. Why is it you're being like that? Because if you don't have any idea of why it is that you're doing that, or if you can't pinpoint it or recognize it, then ultimately what will happen is that you'll just continue to do it. But if you have an understanding and an awareness of it, and then you start to figure out why it is that you do that, whether it be from past experiences, which typically is from, or maybe it's just that you are holding on to something, or like your ego is keeping you in a place where you're like trying to protect the way that you want to be, as opposed to allowing yourself to evolve. Right? If you don't know why, then you can't make a shift. But if you have an awareness and you do know why, then you can start to pay attention to and bring awareness to every time that you're feeling the same way. You can like cut the head of the snake off in a sense, and you can start to create a new pathway for yourself. So get the physical work in, but also do the inquiry work. Ask yourself why. Journal things down that come up for you. um, don't you think that's important too?
I do, and I think it's also like important to keep the inquiry simple initially, which I think just tying that inquiry to that physical activity that you're doing, like what we talked about earlier, like if you're a person that you're in a yoga class and like when there isn't music playing, you just want the music to be playing. Well,
Right.
like why is that? If you're on a bike ride and you like always have to have music playing, or a run and you always have to have music playing, well, why is that? Like what, and that's like a really simple place to look to start.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good, yeah, just like foundation. And then once you start looking there, then it's much more easy to notice where you do that in other parts of your life, because you're already like having that awareness and that looking and that listening for that. So it's easier to see it elsewhere.
Right on. That rocks. Well, I think that's a good place to finish this podcast up. What do you think?
I do.
So good. Short and sweet.
How are your armpits doing now?
I am sweating like Niagara. I am. I don't know if it's this little room that I'm in, this little area, but I am sweating. And
Well, you're either
again,
uncomfortable or you're just hot. So we're not sure.
I think it's a combination of both. But I will say that the deodorant that Katie purchases is the money because it smells good and it's not artificial. It's the healthy stuff.
Yes. All
Yeah,
right.
anything around this house is pretty healthy. But hey, Katie, thanks a bunch for having this convo. And hey, everyone, thank you for checking out Play Hard and Love Big Radio. When I was in Folsom this last weekend, so many people told me that they're listening to these podcasts, and we can see it in our numbers. Our numbers are growing, and we appreciate you listening to us. And remember, the only way that we grow is if you share this podcast with the people that you think could benefit from it. So thanks for sharing this show, and continue to share this show so that we can share the love. You can watch the video of this podcast and all of our other podcasts on YouTube, or also Spotify has a video option that's really cool. So you can follow us on Spotify as well. Spotted Dog Yoga and SUP is available for you to discover at spotteddogyoga.com. So check out spotteddogyoga.com for all your yoga needs in person and online. And we'll see you again for our next episode of Play Hard and Love Big Radio. See you later.
Peace out.